I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. We continue now with Esther. Now remember, Haman's plot to have the Jews massacred has been revealed and Haman executed. Mordecai was put in his place, and he issued a new decree. He couldn't undo the last one, but he issued a new decree allowing the Jews to defend themselves. But I did notice one thing, that the decree to kill all the Jews was supposed to happen on the 13th day of the 12th month, and the Jews are allowed to kill their enemies on the 30th day of the month. So I'm not sure how that works out. But let us read. We are now in chapter 9. The Jews slay their enemies, including Haman's 10 sons. Feast of Purim instituted to commemorate their deliverance and victory. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces, for this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men, and Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, and Parmashta, and Arisai, and Aridai, and Vajazetha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamadatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hands. On that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. So this is the Jews, by a decree of the king, are going out and they're killing those who are seeking to kill them. And they have the help of all the lieutenants and princes. All the government officials are helping the Jews. And so they kill a lot of people. In the city of Shushan itself, it says they killed 500 men. And then it lists the names of the 10 sons of Haman. And this is brought to the king, so the king knows, he has the tally, he knows what happened. Verse 12. And the king said unto Esther the queen, The Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee, or what is thy request further, and it shall be done. Then said Esther, If it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000, but they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews in the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. 75,000 killed outside of Shushan, over 500 killed in the city of Shushan. So, 76,000 people are killed. Nobody, even though the decree says you can kill them all and take the spoil, in other words, you can take what is theirs, you can ransack their house. The Jews don't. They kill their enemies in order to preserve their own lives, but they don't take the spoil. They leave that so that the families of the people that they killed will have some support. This is a beautiful thing. This is wonderful. Get rid of those who are trying to kill us, but we don't want to punish their families, or at least as little as possible. And so we're going to leave the families with the spoil. Let them keep their money, keep their belongings, so that they can still have their upkeep, their maintenance. And then we have these 2 days of celebration. In the city of Shushan, they're celebrating on the 15th, because they had 2 days in which they were killing their enemies. But everywhere else, they have only 1 day, so they celebrate on the 14th. We have these 2 days of celebration here. It's a very interesting way this works out. And the reason why this would work out this way is, again, in the provinces, they would have done all this on the 13th, and then they would have rested and kind of rejoiced on the next day. The second decree was only for the city Shushan. The rest of the provinces didn't have this decree allowing them to do anything further. But it's also true that they would not have known of the decree in Shushan until several days, weeks, possibly months later. And so this is describing the kind of natural way this just kind of rose up. You have the people in the provinces, they celebrate on the 14th, because that's the day after the decree. But in Shushan, in the capital, they got the second decree, and so they celebrate the day after. Verse 20. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device which he devised against the Jews should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged upon the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim, and he sent the letters unto all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Simply put, Purim is the pure, which means lot, or Purim is plural, lots. See, Haman had cast lots both for the month and the day to destroy the Jews. And so we are going to celebrate how the lot of Haman was overthrown. That's the name, Purim. That's where it comes from. Now, in this first time, the people kind of celebrated the day after the decree. So, as I said, in the provinces, they celebrated on the 14th, the day after the first decree. And in Shushan, they celebrated on the 15th. And so when Mordecai and Esther sent out the proclamation, they include both days, a 2-day festival. And it is written as a decree with the authority of the queen and the king's highest advisor. And I'm pretty sure it is still a festival celebrated today in most Jewish communities. That will finish out chapter 9. Chapter 10 is next. Very short chapter, so we'll see you there.